Live from the Bayside Bunker, it's Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast, now brought to you in part by Twin Spires. I'm your host, Kyle Roscoe, and we have a fantastic card for you guys tonight as we cover Belmont, or not Belmont, the Big A, excuse me. It is just Aqueduct as we cover the Late Pick5 on Saturday with two really nice and competitive stakes, including a really nice race for three-year-old fillies on the turf headed by, of course, Laura Lynn. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you guys all so much for joining the show. I greatly appreciate it. If you guys, of course, enjoy the podcast tonight, please go down below the video player, hit the like button, and hit the subscribe button. We would greatly appreciate it because not only one is it completely free to do and the best way to help out our channel, but it also pushes these podcasts and others out into the YouTube's algorithm to hopefully bring more horse players to the HHH Racing Podcast. Of course, for that, we thank you. I'm sure you guys follow Howard over on X. If you did, you guys saw the very, very fortunate news that we are now sponsored by Twin Spires. So we're going to have to be on our best behavior, but it's honestly a fantastic, it's a fantastic opportunity that's been given to us. And we hope to make, of course, the people over at Twin Spires proud with this podcast and others, which I will talk about here shortly. Of course, you can also listen to every single podcast that's posted here to the HHH Racing Podcast in audio form over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. As you can see the normal schedule for us on the bottom side of the screen, which now has to be updated with our brand new show, which I will do, of course, in a second. Del Mar is back for Pacific Horseplayers, but should remain every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, as long as they draw their cards early, as I believe they normally will be now. But obviously that will be up in the air. Of course, every Wednesday here with us, Bettin and Boozin at 8 p.m. Eastern, and Picks and Ponies every Thursday with Howard, Pete, and Paul at 8 p.m. Eastern as well. Of course, you can follow us over on TikTok and Instagram at Bettin and Boozin Podcast. And there's a new show that's getting added to Wednesday nights. Actually, their first show happened tonight. It's called The Leaderboard, Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, brought to you by Twin Spires live money contest strategy, recaps and previews from the previous week, and then previewing the next week, all Wednesday night. It's a fantastic contest show that we're going to have on Wednesday nights. Again, Twin Spires has really stepped up their game in contest strategy, holding, excuse me. And like I said, they have a ton of contests, and it's all going to be covered here on the leaderboard. And even if you're not normally a contest player, I would highly, highly recommend checking it out, because a lot of these Twin Spire contests, there's very small in bankroll. You know, there's some for $200, $300. And I know a lot of you guys play more than that just on any given Saturday. So if you guys are interested, why not put your money into one of these contests, and you can win anything from cash prizes to Kentucky Derby betting challenge seats, and it's seated very, very nicely. So if you guys are interested, please check out, of course, Twin Spires on their ADW or their website for their contests, and then check out our show with the leaderboard, as you can see right here. I'll bring the banner off the screen right now. Live money, contest play, strategy, as well as upcoming tournaments and events. You can see they have a Tour Points leaderboard that started in May that goes through April 2026, including the 3 Kentucky Derby betting challenge seats, $50,000 total. It's an absolutely great way to get into the contest space. And with the leaderboard, which is, of course, our show I've touched on already, it's going to hopefully bring more to you guys and hopefully bring a welcoming environment to get you guys into contests if you guys aren't already. You can, of course, subscribe to our normal Power Picks, guys. Only $4.99 a weekend, $21.60 a month is how it's billed through Patreon. And we have over 4.5 years, and we're still well and truly in the positive. It's on patreon.com/HHH Racing Podcast. Link is also in the description below. And of course, you can find previous editions of those Power Picks before you buy them, or learn more about us over on HHHRacingPodcast.com. Gentlemen, let's get right into the handicapping. I'll bring my co-hosts on. We'll crack a good cold one, and we'll get right into the handicapping from New Jersey, Patrick Kunzel, and of course from normally the West Coast, but of course going to the University of Kentucky, Noah Maher. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
It's nice to be back. See your lovely faces.
What's up, Pat?
What's going on? I haven't seen these guys since
a couple weeks.
Parted ways in Destin.
Oh, he said where we were, dude. It's over. But no, I'm just kidding. But
I wish we were there right now. I got snow earlier in the week. I mean, this weather. Take me back.
The Bayside bunker, it's going well over here. I think it's like 72 outside right now, right? But actually, someone brought that up because we had that Arctic blast that came through here. It was 40 degrees last night here, and Chris Couples joined in and said, "I have to ask, have you seen any falling iguanas? Because that's a real thing. That the iguanas literally get stunned from the cold in the palm trees and they fall out of the palm trees." But funny enough, as I brought up, I have not seen any, which is funny. But Emma's been on the road all week, so maybe she has seen them. We'll have to ask her, of course, when she gets back. My mom is here. Mom, thanks for joining the show. Greatly appreciate it. Howard, yep, the Bayside bunker is what we're calling the brand new apartment down here. Hopefully everyone else enjoys it as well. Gentlemen, Nectar of the Gods, of course, coming out, and cheers to anyone else that has a beer in their hands as we start betting and boozing here on the HHH Racing Podcast. The Late Pick5 at Aqueduct on Saturday starts on race 6, 2:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and draws a field of, I've got to hold on, my Equibase is messing up. Either way, it is November 15th. View all races, and here we go. Race number 6, as I mentioned before. Don't look at me like that. No, it's a field of 10, 2 also eligibles, and 2 main track only, as I bring up on the screen right now. Gentlemen, you know the drill. We're covering New York on a Wednesday, so unfortunately we don't have morning lines in the programs or horse numbers in the DRF. So if you are talking about a horse, please say the number as well as the horse name. Morning line favorite, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not even going to guess. Of course, David Aragona will be the best at doing that, so you will see those morning lines out tomorrow. I'll bring up our picks on the bottom side of the screen right now. You'll see we're going 3 different ways here. I'm going with the number 1, Artistic Success, for Manny Franco and Joe Sharp. Pat's going with the number 5, Long-Legged Queen, for Sahin Savachi in the irons, and Noah's going with the number 10, One Last Knock, with Kendrick Carmouche for Carrie Brion. Bring up the DRF right now. Pat, I'll just let you talk first. Long-Legged Queen, a horse I'm actually interested in a little bit as well. In the number 5, I have second, but you have a little bit more confidence. You're going with her on top.
Yeah, Kyle, I really liked her last race. I thought the way she did it from off the pace, it was a pretty quick race. I'm not going to lie, but the way she was able to do it, kind of navigate traffic in the stretch at long odds, and has been pretty decent odds, double digits the last 4 times, as you can see, but has faced, some pretty decent competition prior to that. So, the trainer switched back to Jolie. That I'm not really sure what was going on there. It obviously was trained by him in May, her, I should say, and then she kind of goes back into the barn there. But yeah, like I said, I just really liked that race and did take a bigger jump on the speed figure scale. And I think should get that set up again, because there should be some decent amount of pace signed on according to the formulator.
Yeah, and I'll show that here in a second. I guess you could say if people like that trainer switch type of angle, again, Joe Lee is only, a smaller barn, 31 starts so far in 2025 through 11 months out of the year. However, both wins have come in the Joseph Lee barn, one off the turf to break the maiden, and then another on the turf last time out. And Pat, you brought up the pace scenario, which is something I wanted to bring up as well. You see both the 3, the 8, and the 10 all going out for the lead in terms of time form. The 1 sitting a good spot just behind the inside. But the 5, again, with a good setup, should be able to at least run in the money. That was my thinking. I'm not sure. Again, it's more of I have to see it one more time from that 74. But of course, she took a really nice step forward last time. If she continues here, she easily has a chance to run in the money, if not on the win end. Noah, you have the number 10 in here, one last knock. And this is a horse that if she was drawn anywhere but the far outside in this race, I would like a lot more. However, 6 furlongs at Aqueduct, you do have a pretty long run up to that turn.
Yeah, and I think people might be thinking the same, Kyle, and maybe you'll get a little bit of a better price on her, just people that are got some reservations with the outside post. But I think with her style, it's probably going to be no problem. I know they've got her dueling with the 3 and the 8 on the time form pace projector. Hopefully Kendrick's smart enough to not go with those 2 and maybe just sit right off. And if that was the case, you'd have the 1 and the 10 sitting in the second position. And if I feel like I had, either the 1 or the 10 on some tickets to start the pick 5, I'd be pretty confident if that was the case. But even then, one last knock I thought ran pretty valiantly and just losing by a length to Silsby, who came back and won. I think it was either last weekend or the weekend before that. So I looked long and hard at the 1, who's coming from open company to state bred. I thought, she was a good way to go, and you've got her on top as well. So obviously you're thinking pretty similar.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on everything you said about the 10. And the fact that she was able to sit last time and run just behind a horse that ran a 79 next out this past weekend at Aqueduct. I think that's definitely a good horse to go with. Again, just one thing, she's young. She's 3 years old, going against older and staying in state bred. Just, again, I think there could be better value found elsewhere with the number 1 Artistic Success. However, I don't know what type of value I'll actually get with her, but my whole point is trip. Noah, you brought it up with the 10. I think the 1's going to sit right in the pocket and has sat before, going back to when she ran in these state bred, she ran in state bred maiden claimers at Aqueduct at the end of last year as a 3-year-old, and actually sat really and was able to rate really nicely for Luis Rivera and ended up just missing out by a length. Has come back, basically changed her complete tactics. She went into routing for Joe Sharp, won very, very well in a state bred 50, then went up to an optional claimer 50, just lost by a length and a quarter. Then last time out, she had a ton of, definitely didn't run her race in there, but dropping back to that state bred, which is what Noah hinted at, I think could be the key for her success, and back to that 6 furlong where you could argue she's been the best. Although her win didn't come there, she's definitely ran her best races at the 6 furlong distance. So bunch of stuff trying to catch a little bit of a good one with Artistic Success. However, you guys know how much I love turf sprints, so you'll know probably where my money will not end up on the day. However, I did land with the number 1 Artistic Success. Talked about the 5. Pat, I'll let you talk about the 3 and the 2 here. Noah, you can feel free to jump in on the number 3 as well. Alpine Giant, Jeremiah Engelhardt. This is another 3-year-old taking on older here, but Ricardo Santana has been riding pretty well over the last, especially at the end of the Belmont at the Big A meet. He was riding really well. This is another one that should get caught up in that type of speed duel early. So it'll be interesting from a trip standpoint with the 3.
Yeah, it would. And I'm going to guess she's probably going to be favored. I do think that her time form was a little up there. So I think she probably will go off as the favorite. Yes, listen, she's run her race in all of them. She gets to the front end there, except on debut where that was a little bit of a disaster. I don't question whether or not Ricardo's going to go to the lead. He's as aggressive as possible. It's just that last race didn't really do much for me there at this distance. That's a little concerning to me. But I do think is the class in here. So I'll be using defensively, but not, I'm not all about a horse if this horse is going to be favored.
Yeah, and I think she'll definitely take some money, Noah. I don't know about favoritism. However, I mean, this is one of those horses, too, that, granted, it was just to the outflank of the leader, but she has had the ability to at least rate a little bit and win from 3 lengths back coming around the turn. This is going to be as all these turf sprints are, right? It's going to be a very, very trip-dependent race, and whoever gets the best trip, I think, out of, the 1, 3, or 10 that you have in there, I feel like has a very good chance to win.
Yeah, she's kind of game time decision for me. If Pat's right and she's the favorite, I would just take my chances with the 1 and the 10 because you get some pretty decent prices on them. But even though that being said, I think that's pretty reasonable just because you look at her 2 races before the last one. And I'm not exactly sure what happened in the last race. I mean, she got the lead pretty easily. gave it up pretty easily and just was really a non-effort, because if you go back to her other 2 races, I mean, she was second behind Anascall, who's a pretty nice 3-year-old filly for Clement, who's in some decent stakes races I know she was up at Woodbine for 1 and was at Monmouth 2. So she ran in some pretty credible races over the summer. So she was second to her, which, she's kept some pretty good company. And then, like you said, she broke her maiden from off the lead. So if she finds herself on the lead, I think she'll probably be pretty tough. But if she's, a price that is a little low for me, I'd be fine in taking the 1 and the 10 and taking my chances.
I think that's very, very well said. The 2 Miss Bourbon's kind of the same way. This is one that's going to run like the number 5 that Pat and I both have in the mix as well. She looks a little slow on paper. However, she can get up with the right trip. And then with the number 9 in here, Willful Mama, this is another one for Flavian Pratt, Michael Maker, who will get bet down, of course, just based on connections alone. Pratt's rode a lot for Maker up in New York these last couple weeks and had some winners and had some really non-efforts as well, but they always consistently take money. She's one that's ran very, very well on the turf and has run some really, really bad races as well. It's almost like you never know what you're going to get with her. But if she's able to sit, kind of a middle pack trip, I feel like she could easily clunk up for 3rd, especially with the Frenchman in the irons. But on the win end, it would be very, very hard to trust her, in my opinion. In race number 6. What's up, Pat? Go ahead.
Hitting at a hard knocking 40%?
Yeah, wait, no kidding. Like,
unbelievable.
I mean, when you got Irad, Jose, they're all down in Kentucky. Pratt's like, all right, cool. I'll take these $90,000 purses for, not for free all day, but for 40% for free. And that's pretty good in this game.
And the weather's been great. So there's been turf racing, so he can hop on. Yeah, it's all falling into his lap. His fall meet.
And honestly, obviously for him, that's not bad. But I like kind of a couple additions they have. I know Marin ran there for a little bit, and Savachi, who is a very, very good Woodbine jockey, is down there for the winter. So I like the additions they have in there to kind of boost up the back end of that jockey colony. However, Flavian Pratt probably does sit at the top alone. I don't feel like that's a very creative statement by any means. In race number 6, to kick off the pick 5, I'm going 1, 5, 9. Pat's going 5, 3, 2. Noah's going 10, 1, 3. Guys, let's move on to race number 7. And we already hit the feature on the card. It's the Grade 3 Jockey Club Oaks going 1 mile and 3/8 for 3-year-old fillies on the turf. $350,000 on the line as well. This is a really nice race, guys, and it's headed by the number 4 Fionn, number 5 Evershed, and the number 7 Laura Lynn. As I bring up our picks on the screen right now, Pat and I are both going with the number 7 Laura Lynn. Noah, you're taking another chance with the previously undefeated filly in the number 4 Fionn. Obviously lost her second race last time, or sorry, not undefeated, but coming off a long win streak, 3 races, ran in the QE2. I guess you could say she was a little disappointing, but that's probably against the top of her competition in this type of division.
Well, if they had run the race with 20 minutes to post, she would have been really disappointing, because someone that day had made a $200,000 win bet on her, and I think she opened up at what? 1 to 5. You were there, so
yep, it was 1 to something. I know that.
Yeah,
for sure.
She ended up going off at 3 to 2, and I guess you could say she was a little disappointing. I was a little puzzled by the ride, to say the least.
Yeah,
she was so far back, and wasn't really a ton of running from anybody from the back of the pack. But I thought she ran okay. I kind of preferred her a little bit more than I did Laura Lynn going into the race, and I thought Laura Lynn ran fine, and Fionn ran fine too. So it just kind of seems like if I liked Fionn going into the QE2 last time, just based off of what they did, I don't really see any reason why I would, turn the tables and go with Laura Lynn. But I think it would be a scenario where I would hope that Laura Lynn would be favored, just because I think Fionn going into that race, she had a pretty good record. I mean, she was coming off 3 straight wins. The last one was going 1 mile and 5/16 at Kentucky Downs, which I think with the stretch out in distance, I know Laura Lynn's had a crack and a win in 1 mile and 3/16, but I think maybe going a little bit further might play into the hands of Fionn just a little bit more. That would be my hope if I were betting the race.
And that's my problem, though, is I literally am doing exactly what you said. Was I preferred Fionn going into the QE2, saved some money because she was 1-5 and didn't go up from there. And I'm like, I'm not betting that crap. Are you kidding me? I'm not betting that. And obviously saved me money on the day. She has taken the blinkers off, which is an interesting move from Cox, that she has had her blinkers on the entire time that she's been running.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. Probably trying to get her. I don't know. Obviously, they're not trying to get her to relax, because she's been pretty out of the race her last couple. Obviously, Brad knows a lot more than we do, so obviously he sees something. Equipment change could be what she needs. I just think she's gonna be too. If she runs exactly like she has the last couple, I'm just worried she's gonna be too far back again. There's not too much speed in the race like this, and I know it's a 1 3/8 miles, so it's really just a stamina race when it all comes down to it. But I'll tell you what, Pat, Laura Lynn has really surprised me, because I was completely against her in the Saratoga Oaks. I didn't think she wanted to go that far. Stuffed me in a locker and threw the locker to the bottom of the ocean, really, because she never, ever looked like a loser in that race. Then in the QE2, I thought she ran really, really credibly. Just the matter of the day is she wasn't the best on the day. Lush Lips came back to run a huge blinder in that race. Now coming back into here, she should be sitting again mid-pack. And based on the time forms, I'll bring it up right in front here, Pat. She looks to sit a really nice trip again around, probably not a blazing pace. And if she just sits in front of horses like Evershed and Laura Lynn, it could be real tough for everyone else.
Yeah. And, we feel like we try to make excuses for horses, that we like more times than not. I feel like with her, we've tried to nitpick her form. And she's kind of just, put us off every time. And I do think in the QE2, I don't know, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Watching that race, Lush Lips just tripped out. I mean, Laura Lynn had a little more trouble. And listen, beat her fair and square, but I do think that it would have been closer if the trips were a little bit better. But yeah, listen, I think Kendrick, will be aggressive early, get her, up on near the lead, and we'll be able to kind of just stalk the leader and go on with it. But yeah, watching the QE2 here, we're going to get to the stretch, and it's just Laura Lynn had to do a little bit more than Lush Lips did. That's kind of where I'm getting with. And at the end of the day, horse won, but I think that maybe this will get better odds for Laura Lynn.
I mean, she really just tripped out, right? I mean, Lush Lips sat in front of Laura Lynn and Fionn for that matter the whole time. Fionn was way in the back. You're looking at the 9. Laura Lynn, I mean, she's running really well, and she's still like coming on. That makes me think that the little bit of extra distance probably isn't going to be too much of a hindrance to her, if any at all. Obviously, Fionn had no chance from where she was, especially on the day with the top 3 horses in the race finishing 1, 2, 3, just in different order. And, the QE2 is always a great race every year. But I'm just banking on, again, Laura Lynn sitting in front of Fionn, and if that's the case, could be just hard to catch her down the stretch. I still think Fionn runs a really good race, just a matter of we don't know how far back she's going to be, and that's my concern. Evershed, I thought, ran a really nice race behind Laura Lynn in the Saratoga Oaks. Obviously, came back in a race we also covered on here, which was an absolute bog that day at the Old Dominion Oaks. Was favored that day, went straight to the lead, which is not what this horse wants to do. Ended up running good, finished second, 82. Again, soft turf could play into that as well. But I just don't know if she's really to that echelon that horses like Laura Lynn, like Fionn are. But if she's running ahead, right next to Laura Lynn, I think she might be able to maybe not catch Laura Lynn down the stretch, but be able to hold off Fionn in here. I really do think she has a good shot to at least finish in the money. Obviously, Onder thinks Fionn's the play of the day. So Onder, good luck to you. And of course, Noah as well in here. Noah, you also have an interesting horse in here with unmerited favor for Kenny McPeak and Chris Elliott, which is the last horse I'll talk about. Actually, no, I'll talk about one other horse because I see R. Stephanie in the chat. This is another horse that's been coming from pretty far out of it, at least the last race, but the last couple at least been a little bit more forward. And I figured that's what you'd want in a race like this. But Kenny McPeak ships one over here. He uses Chris Elliott a lot, so I wouldn't take that into consideration at all. But a horse that won going 1 5/16 miles at Kentucky Downs, the distance is probably not going to be an issue.
I don't think so. And she's just one where she's getting really good at the right time. I know it took her a while to kind of break her maiden, but she did so at Kentucky Downs going 1 5/16 miles. So you'd think that the distance really wouldn't be too much of a worry. And last time at Keeneland, I really wasn't a big fan of her going into the race. And I kind of give more credit to the horses that run better than I expect. And she ran a lot better than I thought she was going to. And she made 9-2 kind of look like a gift. I know she beat that field by 2 lengths, but she probably traveled about 400 or 500 feet further than anybody else did. I mean, she broke from the far outside, was wide around both turns. I mean, you can see in the comments she didn't really break all that grade, and she was way out in the 7th or 8th path in the stretch of that race, and then ended up beating that field pretty handily. So I think it's probably a vote of confidence that McPeak's going to send her back up to New York to try a graded stake, and she's going to get a good price because I feel like the majority of the market's going to choose between the 4 or the 7s. So I definitely give her a look at least underneath, maybe not so much to win in, but you're going to get a good price on her regardless.
This is that horse that Jackson talked me off of when we were sitting in the Keeneland grandstand. You remember that? Because remember, this is the horse that she beat that day here in weighted average was the horse that I bet on at 2-1 or whatever that hung the entire Keeneland stretch. And then Jackson's like, well, if that horse can't win, what makes you think this horse can win? And then the horse blows by him.
Circles the whole field.
Goodbye, everybody. So obviously, shout out Jackson. That's your fault, not mine, of course, obviously. But
that was his fault.
Unmerited favorite could, and you're right. She could just be getting really good at the right time. But our Stephanie play of the day for the number 1 Cynthian. And again, you could say that she looks slow, which I'm assuming is what our Stephanie means by cheap. Third off layoff, coming off a nightmare stretch one last time. Really good gallop out, new sheriff angle, perfectly posted. If you say she's cheap, she won an opening company grade 2 as a 2-year-old, that being the Miss Grillo. Working lights out since last race, should love added ground. I honestly like that pick, Pat, and you have this horse in there as well for a little bit of an upset. Obviously, you're getting Belmont, but the guy I talked about, Sahin Savachi, coming over from Woodbine. Listen, I mean, at a nice price, this horse can run a big one.
Yeah, I think this is more like the underneath, as Noah is going to go with the 8. I just think the way she ran last time. And our Stephanie hits on it in the chat, was on the rail, had to deal with some trouble. Then when the lane opened, it was a little too late and just decided to gallop out and just looked unbelievable. So I think this horse is going to want the extra distance. Listen, Mott dropping this horse in this race, I mean, that's a little bit of confidence, I would say. So, I mean, listen, this horse is going to be a long shot, but could definitely round out the try.
As Paul Allen would say, you go against Belmont at your own peril, and this could be one at a big price that might knock a bunch of people out if they don't have this horse in here. Especially as Noah said, a lot of people are going to be choosing between the 4 and the 7. However, I hope that gets us at least somewhere around 2-1, Noah, on either horse. And if that's the case, I might be able to fire. I think it might be like 8-5, 9-5 would be the more probably likely scenario. However, we can dream. In the Jockey Club Oaks, I'm going 7-5-4. Pat's going 7-4-1. Pat and Noah's going 4-7-8. Guys, moving into race number 8. It's a 6.5 on the dirt. 3-year-olds and up in New York State, of course. Allowance for 81,000. Another field of 8, as I bring up the pick on the Equibase right now, and I'll bring up our picks. And we're all going with number 2. Long Pour, Ricardo Santana, Steve Asmussen. This is like, we say it every time, this is like when everyone picks the same, on College Game Day when they all pick the same college. You might as well run for someone else. However, Noah, actually, no, I'll let you go first last time. Pat, I'll let you go first this time. Long Pour, I mean, last time out, I thought ran really well. Just didn't get the job done that time, but however, looks to set a much nicer trip in here as opposed to the last one. And between you and I would love to see Ricardo get a little bit aggressive with this horse.
Yes, you're right, Kyle. Got to go to the lead here. Try to go to the lead, because when he brought this horse back and put this horse in second last time, and I believe it was 2 times the last 2 races, I believe, he did this. It just didn't work out. He sat the stalking trip. The horse didn't want to go by. And was obviously facing, Man in Finance, good horse for Danny Gargan. Same with National Identity. Those horses would definitely be huge favorites in here. But I just, guys, this horse gets to the lead is just faster than these, I would think. I'm not going to try and beat this horse. But, Roofer the 3 has faced this horse the last 2 times as well and has gotten to the lead. and is faded late. So that could be troublesome a little bit if they do duel. But if Ricardo gets aggressive, I'm not concerned.
My hope, no, is that obviously she won on the lead. Or he won on the lead, so used to saying she. I'll take a drink for that one in a second. First time off, the trainer switch from Rusty Arnold to Steve. Went straight to the lead with Saez. We know how aggressive Louis can be, and basically stole that race before it even started. And then Ricardo last 2 times has kind of not really been too aggressive with him out of the gate, and it's showed that, he hasn't really run bad per se. However, it's just a matter of he hasn't been able to get the lead. I would just love for him to be aggressive here and just try and if you think the 3 is just, a lesser animal, just take the bull by the horns and hopefully you can hold on the entire way.
Yeah, I think he's probably classy enough to where Ricardo can kind of make a decision. I will say it is 6.5, so he's got a little more room to work with, where if the jockey in the 3 is really hell-bent on getting the lead, then Ricardo can just, kind of let him go, just because you hit the nail on the head. I mean, Roofer's kind of proven to be a little of a pop and stopper. So, but Pat, I think, is spot on, because he said it right there, national identity and man in finance. I mean, they'd be odds on 2-5, 3-5 in this race, and he finished second to him both times. And I thought the second he ran last time was pretty damn good, where he battled a little bit with Roofer, put him away, and then man in finance just kind of grinded him down in the stretch. So I think a replicating effort of that for Longpour would be good enough in here. And isn't Longpour isn't he the hunch play of the day? I mean, Longpour, it's right up your alley, Kyle.
What's that supposed to mean, dude? What the heck's that supposed to mean?
What time does the race go off? It might be right at the time that Longpour occurs.
It's as they say, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere is the answer to that question. And wow, just because I had a bunch, however many Michelobes and Destin, now it's coming back to bite me in the you-know-where, but whatever, man. I'll take it for what it is. Pat, you're going with the number 7 in here, Skytown, as well as Share the Loot. Feel free to talk about these two. The ultimate equipment change, though, on Skytown for a Delphi Racing Club, of course, very good friends of the podcast. So hopefully for you and for them, this horse can get a good run in here.
Yeah, I'm hoping this horse can hit the board. Obviously, it's going to come off a bit of a layoff here. Needed to, get some equipment changes, as they would like to say, feel a little bit better. Been a little hectic of late, I guess. And listen, I think Skytown, this horse is going to need to improve to have any chance at winning. But to back that race breaking his maiden here was not bad. It was pretty fast. So yeah, I'm going to give this horse a chance. They dropped this horse in a state bred stake last time and didn't do much running and was, of a longer shot, but it's been working forward in here. And I'll try and catch a price underneath, because if it's not Longpour, it really could honestly be anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Skytown just looks a little slow, but if he takes a step up from that maiden win, coming back to the sprint, mile at Aqueduct, still 1 turn. However, this is more of a traditional sprinting distance. If he can cut back and run really well again, this could easily be a horse that you can catch at a nice price. Share the Loot, Melanie Giddings, Chris Elliott, same type of way. However, this one's that likes to sit a little bit off the pace, but has won very convincingly at this distance, at this track. So Share the Loot could definitely be one to get into the money here. Noah, just to round out our conversation here, you have the number 4, 3Bs, who I have in third, you have in second, and then number 6, Empire Sky, who you have in third, I have in second. So feel free to end the conversation with these two.
I'll talk about the 4. I'll let you talk about the 6, because we've got those flip-flop. But 3Bs, he kind of fits the bill of like a horse where you would want to see it again, as we kind of talked about and alluded to on some previous shows and races. But I think Pat's spot on. Outside of the 2, where do you go? So, maybe you just take a shot with him. Maybe he's getting good at the right time. I mean, I will say that some of his races, he hasn't gotten really all that good of setups where they've been kind of dominated towards the front, and you get some blue-coated fractions. So if things go crazy, if Roofer really wants to go and Ricardo kind of, makes a mistake and gets hooked up with that, I think 3Bs maybe has a chance. And then the 6 is another one that I threw in there, but I'll let you talk about that one.
Just threw him in there, just why. But yeah, I know that's exactly the type of thing you mentioned. Pat's just been right, dude. It's just almost like that's why we have him on the podcast, because he's just always genius. Right.
He needs
absolute genius. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Don't we all?
Don't say that on the golf course.
Self burn, dude. Those are rare. Empire Sky, Ronaldo Yanez with Kendrick Carmouche hops aboard this one. So obviously this horse has to have a little bit of run. And this is one for lesser connections, if you will, that will probably get forgotten in the betting. But this horse has run just as much, if not better, than Long Pour has in a lot of, especially that second to last race. Granted, I know it was at Parks, but blue coated fractions, they went 46-1 out there for the half mile, and that's even blue coated. So obviously that tracks was very fast, but won absolutely blitzing that field and came back in a state bred allowance at this level last time out and ran behind Man and Finance in that race we mentioned earlier. So, and was coming on late. So this is one that might be a little bit forgot in the betting. And if it is at least underneath, I feel like this horse is worth a look in your exactas and trifectas. In race number 8, I'm going 2-6-4. Pat's going 2-7-8. Noah's going 2-4-6. Ladies and gentlemen, before I keep going, we have I want to at least shout out that we're going to have a live show, and it's the first live show of Weekend Warriors that we've done in a while. And again, I want to bring it up because, of course, it's the first one that's going to be sponsored by Twin Spires, and we have. And see, look at this. This is why we pay these guys. It's pretty good stuff. But don't do that. But it's going to be 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern time this Saturday. Again, we're covering the Churchill contest. It's the Claiming Crown that Picks and Ponies is covering tomorrow night, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. So if you want a preview of it, watch that. But we'll be watching the last couple races of the Churchill Downs card and the end of the Churchill Downs contest over on Twin Spires. So again, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Weekend Warriors. It's back in a big way. Brought to you guys by Twin Spires. So come give us a watch over there and watch some live racing with us on Saturday. Guys, moving on to race number 9. It's the final stakes race on the card. It's the Knickerbocker Stakes. And one slip up, but the Knickerbocker Stakes running 1.1 miles on the outer turf course, 3-year-olds and upward. That's a field of 8 with one main track only listed in the 9 hole, with the morning line favorite going to be somewhere between the number 3 Trickery, the number 4 Ohana Honor, and the number 7 Air Recruit, as I bring up our picks on the screen right now. Noah, very based, my friend, very based. But Pat is going with the number 8 Naptown, the Ontario bred, which, Pat, I know you have a pretty strong affinity for this one. So going to go to you first. What'd you like most about the number 8 in this race, Naptown?
Yeah, guys, I'm just not sure I can bet Ohana Honor at the price that he's going to be. Probably going to be, 7-5 on the morning line, I would say. With Naptown, 6 starts since being claimed, has been run a lot, and has run really well in all those races and is drastically improved. What was it? 3 back, in the Woodbine Mile at almost 100-1. Ran 4th behind Notable Speech, who we do know won a Breeders' Cup race.
That horse is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good, right? And I just think the 2 starts since then, watching them visually, have not been nearly as bad. And has been getting bet in races. So listen, I'm going to take a chance. Probably going to get around 10-1, and I'm hoping for Naptown to come through here in a race where I'm big against the favorite.
Yeah, and I honestly, Pat, I completely understand it. However, obviously, and this horse also, like I said, lost to English Channel, who English Channel ran very, very huge in that race. Obviously came back to run the aforementioned zero buyer. So hopefully next time out, the zero buy angle works really well on that one. That was also Wolfie's Dynagos, by the way. That horse in that race, horse ran like a blinder at 7 or 8 years old now, and he'll probably come to Woodbine and run back to his 105s that he loves to do. Just give a quick shout out to a really cool horse. Naptown, Noah, I mean, obviously neither one of us have it anywhere as we have the exact same picks. This horse has run races, especially in that Woodbine Mile, that can at least, get into the exacta or trifecta for a lot. In a race where there's a lot of good horses, but a lot of good horses that are kind of hard to trust. So I understand why Pat's going with a horse like this.
No, and I completely get it. I mean, this is a race I scanned over and was, ready with both fists to bet against Ohana Honor, and here I am picking him. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing. Kyle, did you watch the Sycamore? I mean, that might be one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Ohana Honor was 6th with 100 yards to go, and then actually resurged and got 4th. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to fault him for that. I mean, he's got plenty of races in the bullet chamber that you can go back to, and he's even got some good ones here at Aqueduct. You go back to the Man of War. He lost to the almighty Silver Knot. Go way back when he was a 3-year-old.
Knew that was coming.
He was second to Northern Invader, who's a very, very good horse on the turf as well. So he's definitely got some good races. It just seems like the best version of him probably wins this race. But if you're not sure that you're going to get the best version, and if you don't want to find out at 7-5, or I think maybe even more likely that he's closer to even money, good on you. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same way, Noah, is that I was looking for horse. I just literally every horse I looked at, I could poke a ton of holes in. As our Stephanie put it, this race is an absolute nightmare. And I feel like that just hits the nail on the head. You just have to imagine that, one, he's going to be bet like it, but two, just the class lines that this horse has. You have to imagine in a race like this, he's going to be able to run back to what he's ran. And even if he runs back to the last couple races that he's run, you'd imagine that it's just going to be good enough to beat this field. But again, he could be easily. Yeah, I'm not going to bet him on the win end, especially not at 7-5, 6-5, which I agree with Noah. What I think he's going to be. But he's in a race like he's almost supposed to win this race, which is the problem with me. That when you say horses are supposed to win this race, it means you don't really feel too confident that they're going to win the race. So. But like Trickery's another one in this race. No, I guess I'm just going right back to you. This is another one that's so hard to trust. Obviously ran huge last year in the Belmont Derby, winning at 5-1, but winning the American Turf at 1,000 and some to 1, basically. 47 was the exact number, but Noah and I, we were there that day. It was one of those where we looked at each other and went, the hell is that? What the hell was that just happened? Obviously turned out that Trickery was actually a pretty nice horse for Graham Motion and still is. Just a matter of, again, I don't know if he's the best version of himself, but the best version of himself probably also wins this race.
Yeah, you're probably right. And I think the fear with him is that he's plateaued a little bit. He kind of definitely proved some people wrong when he was a 3-year-old. And then I thought he ran just fine in the Maker's Mark. I'm sure I was there that day. And Carl Spackler ran well, but I thought Trickery ran fine too. And the connections always said that longer was going to be better for him. And, he was favored in the dinner party. It didn't work out. But that was a weird turf course that day. And then, at Laurel, he was probably supposed to get the job done. But Crystal Quest is a nice horse. And then we just talked about Wolfie's Dynagos, who's still trucking at 7 or 8 years old or whatever he is. The one thing that kind of has me going back to him is, the fact that Graham's probably had this race in mind. And I think the last race was a bit more of a prep. And B, I think the horse that beat him that day, Active Investing, is a pretty good one. You can go into his PPs. He lost a Rhetorical 3-back, and then he lost to Den, who's a really nice runner for Frail Antonacci. So I just think this has probably been circled on the calendar. And like you said, I think the best version of him gives Ohana Honor a run for his money.
I completely agree with you, and I'm very glad you brought up the last race as being it was a complete prep basically for this race. Running at Aqueduct, running in an optional claimer, obviously didn't get the job done, but I'm not sure really they wanted him to get the job done. He ran perfectly fine that day, and if he runs back to a mid-90s buyer, which I feel like he's definitely capable of, he could easily win this race and definitely give Ohana Honor a run for his money. The only horse we really even have to talk about in this race is Air Recruit, who we all have in third. Pat, I mean, this horse has run some very nice races and hasn't been this type of distance, however, but Arch, mile and an eighth, Dam has had a lot of turf route winners, hasn't had anyone go above a mile and a quarter. However, you would imagine with the turf routers, and obviously Arnaud Delacour thinks this horse can run longer.
Yeah, I think exactly right, Kyle. And I think I remember that race at Monmouth in the Oceanport. He was really just much the best in that race, was heavy favored. And then Kentucky Downs just didn't like that track at all. Watching that replay, just no bueno. So, I mean, then you look at that, this horse is going to be right there, right? Just have to wonder if the distance is going to be friendly to him. But I do think this horse is really interesting. Wanted to put him in second, but there was a little more question marks that need to be answered in here. But I do feel like, and Noah hit on it, these horses have plateaued or on the downhill trajectory a little bit here. There's a couple in here that we may come out of this race into the winter season, then get back into the spring when it gets warmer again, that we could look at this race and be like, well, that's where they started their climb again.
Yeah, I'm honestly, Air Recruit is the A1 version of that, exactly what you just said. He's only 4. He's very lightly raced, realistically. He ran as a 2-year-old and then didn't run again until mid-4-year-old season. So I feel like the one horse that exactly fits that bill that you're talking about is Air Recruit. And if he takes a step forward in here, the distance isn't the issue, I would not be surprised. And honestly, I wouldn't fault anyone for picking him on top, just because he probably has the most upside in a field that has a lot of downturn on the form. In the Nick Kerbacher, I'm going 4-3-7. Pat's going 8-4-7. Noah's going 4-3-7 again. Very based. Guys, again, if you guys haven't checked out the leaderboard, please do. It just aired before this show. Of course, you have Picks and Ponies tomorrow covering Churchill Downs and their claiming crown, as well as Pacific Horseplayers, which is normally on Tuesday night. However, it's apparently been downpouring in Southern California, Noah. So it's kind of up in the air right now at this point, right, with Pacific Horseplayers?
Yeah. I know they're getting some rain in the area. I've been back and forth with Ryan and Jackson, so it's a little bit up in the air, TBD as of now.
Okay, just wanted to give everyone an update on that show. Of course, we know that a lot of people will play Del Mar if it's there. And of course, we have a bunch of guys from the West Coast that cover those every single Tuesday, normally at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Guys, let's move on to the last race on the card. And it's a really, really nice maiden special weight in here. 2-year-old fillies going a mile and 16th on the turf. Again, so field of 12 with one MTO in there. The morning line favorite. It's going to be not very heavy, I don't think, but it's going to be shared between a couple. I would assume, as I bring up on the picks on the screen right now, I'm going with the number 12, Isadora Duncan for Pratt and Chad Brown. Pat's going with the number 9, Delightful Darling, Dylan Davis for Mark Casse. Noah's going with the number 4, Abigail, Joel Rosario, Miguel Clement. I feel like those and the number 5, Libero, are going to be the 4 that are vying for the favoritism. Again, I don't think it's going to be very heavy favoritism in terms of anyone specifically. However, I feel like one of those 4 will be the favorite, excuse me. Noah, going to you first. You have the number 4, Abigail, who none of us have anywhere, but again, this is one that was deep closer for Miguel Clement. Joel Rosario hops aboard here, which should be a jockey upgrade. Again, going that mile and 16th distance that she ran last time.
Yeah, if I play any race on Saturday Aqueduct, it's going to be this one, because I do like Abigail quite a bit. I know she was 31-1 on debut, but it's the Clements. They're not just he's typically going to race his horses into shape. But as a daughter of Constitution, they paid $270,000 for. She's out of an Uncle Mo mare, which is a little bit maybe on the sprinty side if you really deep dive into the breeding, but just the fact that they debuted her long, I think that's what she's going to want going forward. And she broke from pretty far out of it, at least from a post standpoint. She was really ranked around the first turn, and she was wide on the first turn and wide on the second turn too, and then was making up a little bit of ground late. So I think it was just very educational. Like you said, gets his main man Joel Rosario back aboard. She's been training pretty consistently ever since. So I'm gonna give her a look, just because some of the other major players in here, excuse me. I know Libero is a little bit of a question mark with the firster for Chad, but the 12 I think can maybe be compromised with the post. The other horse, the 9, I think has maybe had a couple chances and has burned a little money. So I'm going to go to the second-time starter and hope that she takes a big step forward and start number 2.
I think could absolutely, and that might just be a horse I completely overlooked, to be completely honest here, because she and the Clements can easily take a step forward. And here, Pat, you're going with the number 9, Delightful Darling, Mark Casse. Dylan Davis hops aboard again for the last time. This is going to be one that's stretching out, but again, Bernardini mare, you'd imagine the distance should not be an issue.
Yeah, I think that should suit her here, Kyle. And I think watching those replays on a couple of them, she should appreciate that. It's been bet in every start, so has been burning money, like Noah said. But I do think this is a spot here against others that have a lot of questions. She might be the favorite. I wouldn't be shocked. I think she needs to kind of appreciate the distance here. Outside post should sit back a little bit. Hopefully, it is a little bit of a concern. Cassie was having a great summer at Saratoga, so running these horses a couple times up there. Did deal with some weather, obviously, but yeah, I do think that this horse should appreciate stretching out. And yeah, you're going to show that race. That horse is pretty good. Quiet Street, who did ended up stretching out actually, right? It looked like the Miss Grillo,
Ran the Miss Grillo. Ran well in the Miss Grillo, too, behind ground support. Again, Kelsey Danner horse, who I did not have that day because I had Quiet Street, of course, that day. Lit Ship also came back to win in a maiden special weight, then ran in the Jessamine and a 6 furlong stakes race over this past weekend. Of course, didn't run the best. However, again, 2 winners next time out of that race, Pat. So I definitely agree with you. And if there's not a whole lot of speed on, or if she sits the type of pocket, they could be coming to get her. But again, sprint speed coming to a route, she's going to be forwardly placed in there. So hopefully she'll get a good trip for you guys. I'll tell you what, this is a horse that I do gravitate towards a lot. However, there's a very, very good reason, actually a couple of good reasons why I like Isadora Duncan on Saturday, albeit with the wide post, as Noah mentioned. I love one of my best angles that I've been looking forward to, and Keeneland was actually very good for this. It was more for Brad Cox than Chad Brown, but Chad Brown follows that same type of suit. A lot of these big trainers, they have almost like camps where, like Chad has his horses at Saratoga, at Monmouth, at, all these different Kentucky, all these different types of places. But the best ones always stay at Saratoga, which is where they're headquartered. Brad Cox is the same way. Basically, for me, it goes like Saratoga for him, Churchill, Ellis Park, and then Indiana being his last type of string. This horse had been working on the Saratoga side the entire way throughout the last couple months. I'll show all the works now. Debuted on the Saratoga, on the Oklahoma, worked all the way through there. 6 straight works on the Oklahoma turf courts, which is something I really, really like to see from Chad. And the fact that she continues and ran, I thought that last race at Aqueduct was really, really good, to be honest with you. I know she probably was supposed to get the job done that day, but you could see she hit the gate, was completely at the back of the field. It says mild kick. However, she came flying at coming late. You see she's the gray right here in the back in the Peter Brandt silks. And you'll see she's on the outside. The horses in front of her are just going to get the jump. And this is a complete walkover. There's a Resolute right there in the middle. There's, a bunch of other horses. She goes to the inside, completely green, comes back outside. And she runs a pretty good race in here and just ends up losing, I think, by a length and a half, length and a quarter, somewhere in that range, and gallops out pretty nicely behind the 8. However, the one thing that I do like about her in this race, if you go to Significant Form, the Dam, she's a half to another. Actually, Significant Form was a fantastic horse in her own right, multiple graded stake winner, and she's a half to Opulent Restraint, who's run some very, very nice races at longer distances. What? Sorry.
Full.
Yeah, full. Excuse me. You're right. Dubawi and Significant Form. Thank you for noticing that. I completely looked over that, so I'm glad you noticed that. Obviously, a horse that's only gotten better for 3. Looks basically exactly like Opulent Restraint, just the complete opposite type of running style that Opulent Restraint likes to have. If Pratt sits this one, granted, I know the post is going to be the compromise, but I'm hoping that gets us a little bit bigger of a price. And Noah hit on it. There's only really one race I want to bet on Saturday, and it's this one. However, I'm going with a different horse in Isadora Duncan. Hopefully, again, Pratt, I trust him with this horse. I trust him with, firstborn child. I trust him with everything. Hopefully he can work out a really nice trip from that outside post. Again, not too much really else in here, although there's a ton of different ways you can go in here, being the number 7 Quality Street Safi Joseph, who has a first-time starter. His first-time turf starts are not usually the best. However, can definitely have this one get in the money. And Abigail, as Noah mentioned, has a chance. Sharing Wisdom for Kenny McPeak has run some decent races out at Aqueduct. This will be the exact same type of course he's ran the last 2 times. last time was pretty good, albeit at a bigger price. Hopefully he'll be somewhere around 15-1. Might have a chance to get in the money as long as he gets a jump on a couple others in here. And the number 1, Miss Brunellis, as well, is a horse for Belmont, coming second time to that turf routing distance and second time in the Mott barn. Not working very well. I know Mott doesn't like to work his horses that well, but once he took over the training, shipped this horse right up to Saratoga, which is, of course, something we all like to see. This will be second off a little bit of a layoff as well. So Miss Brunellis from the rail, although I don't like 2-year-old fillies from the rail necessarily, she also has a chance in a race that could end up being a pretty wide open field. In the last race, race number 10, I'm going 12-9-3. Pat's going 9-12-7. Noah's going 4-12-9. Our Stephanie, thanks so much for the kind words. Greatly appreciate it. As they say, good show. Guys, let's move on to our best bets. As Pat, I'll let you go first. And Noah, obviously, you can follow him. In race number 6, Pat, you're going a double 3-5 into the 7. That is race number 6, the turf sprint we talked about. The number 3, Alpine Giant, and the number 5, Long-Legged Queen, in a double singling to Laura Lynn. And in race 9, you talked about it a lot, a win on the number 8, Naptown.
Yeah, listen, I think starting out the double in the late pick 5, 3 and 5 are my most logicals in there. I think it could be a little chalky with Alpine Giant and Laura Lynn, so I'm going to try and catch Long-Legged Queen at a price, who's going to be my top pick in there. And then, I'm going to place a win bet on Naptown. I think the odds are going to be too good in a race I think is more wide open and a vulnerable favorite. I just think that horse, if I can get a win bet in on that horse and that horse comes home, that'll be a nice payout. In the second to last race. I was trying to find a double into the last race. I know you guys are probably going to have a bet into that race, so maybe I could tag along with a closing leg.
Because we liked race 9 so much, Noah. We're gonna have we like to honor so much that we got to play a double in the next race. So I'll tell you what, we're both going to have best bets into that race, Pat. I'll tell you that much for free. Race number 7, Noah, going a double 4/2. That is Fionn into Long Pour, I believe. I don't even have to look that one up. And race number 10, a win of the number 4, Abigail.
Yeah, you're just a sicko like that.
Yeah, we remember out here. We're good host time. Good host.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you probably choose Fionn or Laurelin, right? So I think it's pretty straightforward in the first leg. I'm going to take a shot with Fionn, who I liked going into the Kiwi 2, and just based off the races, I don't see why I need to switch sides per se. So go with her, and then the horse that we're all on is really going to have a lot of weight on him on Saturday is Long Pour, who I know if he gets the job done, I'm going to be having a Long Pour myself. But regardless, Kyle will be doing it too. So
I was going to say, it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether she wins or
not.
Yeah. Look, cigars are always nice, but when they're victory cigars, that's what makes them better. Yeah. Of course, we had a couple of victory cigars at the Kentucky Derby that one year where we had a couple good prices. Of course, not after the big race, but after the smaller races, we had some good victory cigars after that, just to bring up old wounds. But good luck, Noah, with your best bets. Guys, 2 win bets for me. Obviously, I could play Laura Lynn with Long Pour, but I feel like if she's going to be 8-5, that's even a price I'm willing to take on her. With Fionn probably going to be somewhere within that 7-5, 8-5, 9-5 range with her. I just feel like Laura Lynn is going to get a jump on Fionn, whether she's better or not. I feel like she's really established herself in this division. And in a race where there's really only, I see 2 horses that can win, and both of them are going to be at the same price of 8-5. I feel like that's good enough value to take a shot on an almost, plus 200 favorite in there. So Laura Lynn's going to be my win bet in race number 7, the Jockey Club Oaks, and in race number 10, a win on number 12, Isadora Duncan. I talked about it at length of why I like this horse, as long as Pratt can navigate from the 12 hole at a mile and a 16th at Aqueduct, which sometimes can be tricky. I think you'll get a good price on a horse, and if that horse ends up being good like Opulent Restraint, you might not see this horse at that price for a while. Again, guys, we have a lot of big shows coming up. Obviously, the leaderboard brought to you guys by Twin Spires just went before this show. So, again, please watch that one after this podcast if you haven't already. Also, Weekend Warriors this Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern, covering Churchill Downs' claiming crown, of course, with the Twin Spires tournament to go along with it. So please visit us on Saturday here on the youtube.com/HHH Racing Podcast for live racing coverage with us, as well as Picks and Ponies tomorrow night, previewing that late pick 5 at Churchill Downs on Saturday. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining, and thank you guys all for joining us tonight as we cover the late pick 5 at Aqueduct for episode 155 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. As my man Fat Wallet says it best, Bettin and Boozin because we are not losing, ladies and gentlemen. I love that from you, as you can see it in my tagline. But for my co-hosts, Noah Maher and Patrick Kunsel, this has been your host, Kyle Roscoe, in episode 155 of Bettin and Boozin here on the HHH Racing Podcast. And until next time, everybody, crush those bets, win those photos, and stay safe, everyone. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good night.